You know, I'm not sure. Gauging from the calls that we've had on the program, we haven't heard from a lot of supporters of Carol Moseley Braun. We've heard a lot of people who've been very respectful of her, very enthusiastic about her performance in the various debates, and have liked what they've heard. But we've also heard a reluctance from those same callers to actually go to the caucuses and stand up for her, fearing that they might waste their votes, so to speak.
Steffen, we're hearing that this race is really tightening up in Iowa right now. You heard about this latest Zogby poll there, showing a statistical dead heat, basically, for the top three candidates, with John Edwards not very far behind. Is that the sense you're getting? You're there on the ground.
Of course. Races always tighten up. If it's two people running, it tightens up between two people. If it's 7, 8, or 9 running, it's very likely that things will sort themselves out, and people will make decisions as they get closer and closer to the actual moment where they have to walk in and make that fatal decision in the caucus. So I think what's happening is the independents, or the so-called undecideds, are beginning to make decisions. Some people who were soft supporters of Carol Moseley Braun and Al Sharpton and others are saying, well, this adventure is over, and we've got to pick a real candidate. And so you're seeing that clustering at the top of people like John Kerry, who should have been number 1 or 2 in the first place, and who's now recovering a little bit.
There's an email we have from Patrick in Iowa, Catherine. Let me read it for you. While most candidates are spending a small fortune in Iowa, Wesley Clark has a group of supporters that shows grassroots supporters can be a help. Wesley Clark not participating in the Iowa caucuses. So he's doing really well according to these latest polls that we're seeing in New Hampshire. Would he have done well in Iowa had he decided to run there?
You know, I've wondered about that, because one of the things that we have been hearing consistently from our callers is that there are several people who've called the show and said that they are looking forward to standing up for Wesley Clark. They think that he is kind of the best anti-Dean candidate, to put it that way. So I think he might have done better here than he would have anticipated.
We have an email from James in Florida, who loves John Kerry, who seems to be picking up some steam. I'm happy to see John Kerry picking up speed. In my opinion, he is the most presidential candidate. I think he is the only one that can represent our country at the UN and mend the U.S. relationship with our lost friends in Europe. There's another email we have in Bill in Massachusetts. Let me put that up on the screen. How in the world can anyone characterize Dean's latest ad in Iowa as an attack ad or a negative ad? It is about as objective and emotionally neutral as any ad could be. It simply states facts about the other candidates' records. It does not distort the truth in any manner and does not question their integrity. It simply points out how they stood on a very important issue. All right, Bill in Massachusetts, let's play that ad and then get the assessment of our two guests.
Where did the Washington Democrats stand on the war? Dick Gephardt wrote the resolution to authorize war. John Kerry and John Edwards both voted for the war. Then Dick Gephardt voted to spend another $87 billion on Iraq. Howard Dean has a different view.
I oppose the war in Iraq, and I'm against spending another $87 billion there. I'm Howard Dean, and I approve this message because our party and our country need new leadership.
All right, Steffen, what do you think? Is that an attack ad?
Attack ads are the ads you run against my candidate, and the ads that my candidate runs against you are called comparative ads. And that's all that's going on here. I mean, it's certainly not an attack ad, it's a comparative ad, and it really doesn't, stoop to the kind of mudslinging and slash and burn stuff that we have seen in other years and that we're going to see in the general campaign. I mean, this whole race is really a three-pronged race between the Democrats who think that you can beat Bush by mobilizing the Democratic base and returning to sort of hot Democratic issues, the ones who believe that you go the Clinton route with somebody experienced who can move to the center and be pragmatic, and then the third and new leg of all this, which is the Clark support group, which thinks that somebody who is really almost not a Democrat but has huge credentials, military and other credentials that can be a great protective shield against attacks from Bush will be the one that could most directly threaten Bush. And that's why this is such an interesting year, because the Democrats have sort of divided into three different groups, and they're asking themselves the horrible, difficult question, how should we go, who's the one that is going to be able to beat Bush? And Iowa will help with that. New Hampshire will give a different answer, it looks like. And then the question becomes wide open as we move into the February primaries. They're the ones that are going to have to answer the question, how are Democrats across the country going to position the party to deal with Bush?
All right, Sarah is in California, wants to weigh in. Sarah, go ahead.
Hi. My question or my comment is just that it's a shame that there's been so much negative advertising against Dean. As soon as he became the front runner, he became the target of all the other Democrats, and it damages his stature. And it does remind me of when McCain was running. I think he would have gotten a lot of crossover votes if he had been the nominee, and you still would have had a Republican president. But because he was demolished by Bush by negative ads, he didn't get a chance to run. And I feel the same way about Dean. I do still think he's the best candidate, but it's a shame that there's been so much negative comment about him.
Among these candidates in Iowa, Catherine, how ugly has it become?
Well, it's been becoming increasingly ugly, I guess I would say. It started out, and really you weren't seeing a whole lot of mudslinging. You're still really not seeing that, despite the Dean ad that you played on the airwaves or hearing it in Iowa. But, of course, attacks have picked up. We've seen that in all of the televised debates in Iowa. And I guess, for Howard Dean, that's just the danger of being the front runner.
Exactly.
Matthew,
I mean, if you...
hold on one second, Stephen. Matthew, I just want to get Matthew in Michigan emailed us this comment. Let me get it up on the screen. All this infighting in the Democratic Party is breaking it apart. It looks to me like only one candidate hasn't lowered himself to personal attacks on the other Democrats, and that man is Wesley Clark. You were going to make a point, Stephen.
Well, I mean, when you have a large field, a very, very unstable period in American history, at least three different solutions to how the Democrats can become the majority party again, and candidates that are very ambitious, of course the front runner becomes a threat to everyone, and it's like the bull coming into the ring and the picadors come and try to draw enough blood to weaken him, and that's what's happened basically to Dean. And that's the challenge for the opposing party, is always not to self-destruct and to circle the wagons and shoot each other as they move towards nominating someone. And the advantage that Bush has is he has no opponent, and it is very, very likely that that will help him a lot. He doesn't have to spend any money or energy or defend himself or fend off any embarrassing attacks by someone like McCain about all the various things having to do with the war and corporate scandals. And that's a huge advantage for him. The opposite is true for the Democrats. They are at a very great disadvantage.
And I
Catherine, how many people do you anticipate will participate Monday night in these caucuses throughout the state?
Well, I know I've spoken with the chairman of the Iowa Democratic Party, Gordon Fisher, and he's talking about record turnouts. What that means in terms of numbers, it's kind of hard to say. It is a party event, of course, and so tracking exact attendance at the Democratic caucuses has been a difficult task. I know they're going to try to do that this year, so we'll have to wait and see.
4 years ago, it was a two-man race, Al Gore and Senator Bradley, Bill Bradley. What, about 60,000, 65,000 people participated then?
That sounds about right.
Mm-hmm. So, and this year they're expecting, I don't know if you know, Stefan, they're expecting maybe 80, 100, maybe even more, 120,000. Is that what you're hearing?
Yeah, 100 to 120,000 is what I'm hearing, because it's just an extraordinary year. I've done this for 33 years, professor at Iowa State, and I've never seen, I think, the level of intensity, the emotional commitment of Democrats, their dislike and even hatred of Bush, and their search for a new way for the Democratic Party to essentially emerge from this as a phoenix rising from what really is sort of ashes. I mean, in the minority and declining in terms of numbers. In Iowa, the Democrats are third after the Republicans and independents who lead. So this is really a year when the Democrats may be able to, get new momentum and emerge with a new message.
Professor Schmidt, Catherine Perkins, thanks to both of you for joining us. Steffen Schmidt, he's known as Dr. Politics, where he teaches. He's a political scientist at Iowa State University. And Catherine Perkins is the host of the Talk of Iowa, popular radio show there. We'll be heading your way later today. I'll be there tomorrow. Thanks to both of you for joining us.
Look forward
and
to
we'll be
seeing you.
right back.